Joining us today to learn more about the IDEAS software. IDEAS stands for Integrated Design, Estimating, and Sales. This tool allows you to price buildings online quickly and efficiently. So we're going to walk through the program and show you the details and highlights. To access the program, go to campanaconsultants.com, and in the right-hand corner, you'll see a button that says IDEAS Login. You should have received a login to use. So simply log in. It'll take you to the IDEAS main page. And from here, we're just going to start a basic quote. Up at the top, you'll see a menu of different things to choose from. The main three that you will be using are quote, IDEAS, and IDEAS resources. So let's start a new quote. Quote and create a quote. This will take you to a main input page. You want to give your project a name that you will remember. Some people like to do the building size in there as well if they're doing multiple quotes for somebody. And then how's the building going to be used? Agricultural, commercial, industrial. This also helps with future reporting so that you know how many agricultural versus commercial buildings you've run throughout your time. So choose a zip code of where your job site is going to be. And then you'll notice there are 12 different building types for you to choose from. A simple basic gabled building, a gabled building with one interior column, a gabled building with two interior columns, a single slope with one interior column with two columns, an unsymmetrical building, an inset first bay building, and you can also do hangars as well. If you're going to do a hanger on the website, there's a couple of things to remember. These are based off of Schweiss doors, which is typically one of the heavier doors that's on the market right now, so it's based off Schweiss specs. It also does not include sheeting and trim for the door, so if you need the sheeting and trim included, you'll have to send through IDEAS Plus to get a final quote. I want to go back and talk about the inset first bay building as well. You see a lot of these in farm buildings where the first bay is open for a tractor cover or equipment storage. Just remember when you're doing an inset first bay, when you run it on the program, the left bay or bay 1 will always be the open bay. So if you need it on the right side, just flip your building around because the first bay will be the open bay on the inset first bay. So moving on, we're going to price just a basic 40 by 60 building, 16 foot tall, and I'm going to do a 1-on-12 slope. So for your buildings, how wide does the building need to be? So for a clear span, you can go up to 120 foot wide. For your input, for your widths, lengths, and heights, if you're doing a basic gabled building, you can go up to 120 foot wide on the website. If you need to go wider, for one post, you can go up to 150 foot wide, and two posts, you can go to 175. If you're going to have a building that's in between those, or let's say you need 125 foot wide, go ahead and put in the 120, and again, we can help you modify that. On your building lengths, you can do up to a 250 foot long building on IDEAS. For your heights, you can go up to 32 feet. And then for your roof pitches, you can go up to a 4-on-12 and as low as a 1/2-on-12 within the site. Training purposes, we're going to stick with just a basic 40 by 60, 16 foot tall with a 1-on-12 slope. So that's everything that you're going to input on your first tab. Also, please note that as we go through this program, up at the top, you'll see that the page we're on right now is specs. When I say next, it's going to take me to the codes and load screen. And so we're going to work through these tabs across the top. So I'm going to say next. It's going to take that zip code that I entered, and it's looking for what it shows to be default codes and loads. Please note that codes and loads must be confirmed with the permit department where the building is going. The website will default to what it has for the latest, but if there are new codes that have been released, then you will need to update it and make sure that your codes and loads are correct. So it's pulled the codes for the zip code that I put in. So I'm going to say continue. So you'll notice again up top, we're on the codes and load screen. I put in a North Carolina zip code, so it's pulling up NCBC 18, which is correct. That's based on IBC 15 today. The wind speed shows to be 115. For your exposure, you can do exposure B or exposure C. Exposure B is going to be used when your building is in an area that is blocked by wind. So if it's a building that's going in between other buildings, then it's exposure B. Exposure C would be if you're putting up a building that has unobstructed wind. Let's say it's a barn in the middle of a field or it's a shop in a new area. If you're not sure, always run with exposure C because that's going to protect you just from a pricing and permit perspective. You can also run the building closed, open, or partial. If it's closed, that means all 4 walls are sheeted and the full building is enclosed. An open building would be like a basketball arena that you see at a park where it's just a roof structure. A partially open building would be a building potentially that's open on one side. So we see this a lot with like cow feeding structures where your end walls and your backside wall are sheeted and your front side wall is open. That's considered partial. So that means that part of the building you're going to have a wind uplift on the interior of the building. So again, closed, open, partial. On your roof dead load, the 2 PSF is set based on our current material. Your collateral load, your live load is in there as 20 PSF. And you've got an option over here on the right to show whether it's reducible or not. Most areas are reducible unless you get up into some of the northern areas that have more snow. So again, that would be something to check with the permit department. For your snow load, for this particular zip code, we're showing the ground snow to be 15, the roof snow to be 10.5. Make sure that if you're in an area that has mountains where this zip code is, that you check the elevation of the site because the snow may be determined based on the elevation. If you see the program defaulted to 40 and 28, most of the time that is a case study area, and again, you need to verify your snow loads. If you need to calculate what your roof snow is, take whatever the permit department shows for your ground snow load times 0.7, and that will be your roof snow load. On your collateral, the program defaults to 1 PSF. That's going to cover basic lighting and ventilation in a building. If you've got a sprinkler system, if it's a dry sprinkler system, you need at least a 3 PSF. If it's a wet sprinkler system, you need at least 5 PSF. So if you're not sure, again, consult with your account manager. They would be happy to assist you. All of the IDEAS buildings are done with seismic design category C. And again, you can select if your tributary reduction is yes or no. Most buildings are yes. Once you've verified all of the codes and loads, you click on agree and accept. And please note that once you get past this screen, those loads are locked in. You cannot come back to this screen to make changes without starting a new building. So make sure that you check your codes and loads. So once I say next, it's going to take me up to the top to the layout screen. When you're doing your layout, based on your width and length, it's going to optimize the bay spacing for you. These are all editable. So for example, we did a 60-foot long building, and it's going to optimize the bay spacing to be 19.6, 21, 19.6. If you want those bays to be 20 foot, you simply click on your sidewall. And always make sure you go left to right. So when you come to a screen that's got multiple tabs, it doesn't always default to the far left, but always start with your bay layout. So here I'm just going to type in that I want 20-foot bays. You'll want to make sure that whatever you type in matches the total bay. You could also go in and do, let's say you wanted to do a 10, 30, 20. You could do that as well. So as long as those match, it doesn't matter. You can do inches, you can do fractions, again, as long as the total matches the length of the building. So once I put in the bay widths, I can go to my bracing options. So your bracing options for the building are going to be cable, rod, portal frame, or wind column. If you're in an area that the seismic does not allow cable, you will not see cable as an option. If you don't select or if you just leave it blank, it's going to choose cable. For portal frames, so if I select a portal frame, I am going to have to choose which bay I want it in. In this particular case, I don't have expandable end walls or mainframe end walls, and so bay 2 is the only bay that it's going to let me put it in. And it will show you on the screen this blue line that shows that it's got in a portal frame. It then switches over to your door and window openings. So you can put in 2 framed openings per bay on each one of the walls. So on here, I'm going to go make sure you select where you want to put the framed opening. So in bay 1 is where I'm going to put a walk door and a window. In this particular case, I'm going to do a custom door opening because I want a 4-foot wide opening, 7 foot tall, and I want it offset 4 foot. And so it's going to show me that door opening. And then for my next one, I'm going to do a window framed opening, and I'm going to do a 4-foot window, 3 foot tall, and I want the top of the opening at 7 foot, and I'm going to offset it 12 feet. So you can see there the program displays the framed openings in that particular bay. If I wanted to go put something in bay 3, again, I can go in here, I select the bay, and you have the option to select from some standards. So I've got a 16-foot tall building. I can go up to a 16 by 14. So it's only going to let you select as high as it'll go. Make sure if you're using a roll-up door that you do verify how much clearance you need over the door. So I'm going to do a basic 12 by 12, and I'm going to tell it I want it centered, and so I've got a framed opening in that as well. Once I'm done with this wall, which is the front side wall, I say done, and graphically you'll see where the openings and things are at on the front side wall. Same thing on the back side wall. So if I want to put a framed opening across from here to match this one, I select my wall, and I'm looking at the wall left to right. So I'm going to select my bay 1, and I'm going to put another 12 by 12 in there, centered. Oops, and I did exactly what I told you not to do. Make sure you go left to right. So your bay layout is going to match your front side wall. Bracing again, I'm letting it default to cable here, and then I put in openings. So once I select that, visually you can see I put basically a drive-through bay in this particular for this particular building. On your end walls, again, it's a 40-foot wide end wall. It's going to optimize the spacing that you need. So in this particular case, I'm going to select on the left end wall, and you've got the option to change your bays. So if you want to do a bay layout, so if I wanted 2 20-foot bays, I can do that. I just put in 2 20s. For bracing, here's where you need to pay attention. For bracing, you've got several different options. It's going to default to cable again, or you can do rod. Cable to frame is only up to widths of 60 foot wide, and it will only show if cable to frame or rod to frame is an option in the building size that you've selected. We also have the option to do a half load end wall frame and a full load end wall frame. With the half load and the full load, if you're going to open that bay at all, you have to have either a half load or a fully loaded end wall. So I'm going to choose a half load end wall for this particular building. And I'm not going to put any framed openings in here because I'm going to open up this wall. So I've left the right end wall the same. If I don't do anything to the right end wall, it's going to default to the spacing as shown, and it's going to be a bearing frame. So that will be a cold form frame. If we switch to a half load or a full load frame, then your material is going to switch over to either a built up or a hot roll member based on design. So again, that's how you go in, and let's just go ahead and put in a framed opening on the right end wall. I'm checking my bay layout. I'm fine with the way the bay layout is optimized. For bracing, cable's fine. So let's go in and let's say we're going to put a window here, and I'm going to do a 6-foot window, 5 foot tall, 7 into the column. Okay, so I've got a window framed opening in here in this particular bay as well. Right, so once I say done, again, I'm on the layout tab. I've entered framed openings. I've checked the building looks like I want it to look like, and then I can go next and go to the advanced design tab. With ideas, you can bounce back and forth between the advanced tab and the layout tab only. So if you remember that you want to do something different on the building design or the layout, I can go back to the layout and I can say, well, actually, I want this to be a fully open wall. So I can click on the left end wall and I can go in here and just change this to 40, make my bracing to a half load frame or even a fully loaded frame, and say done. And you'll see here that I've got a 40-foot bay. All right, so once I say next, advanced design is one of those tabs that you want to make sure that you're going left to right. So you'll notice here you've got a lot of different options to choose from: your base condition, your girt offset, location, open walls, overhangs, liner, jamb, panels, and wainscot. So we're going to go through these for you. Typical industry standard today is the angle with trim, with base trim, with no notch. If you want a notch, again, you can choose a notch with a channel or a notch with an angle. For your girt offset, here's where you choose whether you want the girts to be bypass or flush. Industry standard on your sidewalls is going to be bypass. If you get into a wider building, wider than 100 foot, you may want to go bypass on the end walls as well, because that does save some money. Girt locations. So this is one of those tabs where if you don't choose anything, the design is going to default to be optimized. It'll start with 8-inch, 16 gauge members, and if those don't work, it'll go to 14 gauge, 12 gauge, and then it'll up to 10-inch or 12-inch. With energy codes today, a lot of roof purlins have to be at least 10-inch if you have to do an R33 or above insulation system. So if you need to force the depth of the purlin to work with your insulation, make sure you choose at least 10-inch here, and that'll force the purlins to be 10 inches. On your end walls, again, if you don't put anything, it's going to optimize spacing. If you're somebody who likes a low girt always, so you always want a girt at 3'6", make sure that when you put this in, you can go in and put, let's see, I'm going to open the left end wall. So let's say on the front side wall, I want a low girt because I'm going to do some kind of specialty landscaping or a wainscot on the front. So I'm going to put in a girt at 3'5". What you want to make sure of, though, is that you always input your next girt, which is going to be the 7.333, or our standard is a 7'4" girt. Reason being is if I only put in the 3'6" girt and I don't force the one at 7'4", it may optimize to put the next girt at 8 foot. That won't work if you've got a walk door on the wall like we do on this particular building. So again, if you're going to force a low girt, make sure that you force the second girt as well, the 7'4". Then we go over to open walls. And again, I'm just going across the tabs at the top to make sure that we're hitting each one before we say next. So on the left end wall, we selected a mainframe. So if you'll notice here, I can actually click open end wall, and it's going to remove everything for this end wall. Why would I open the end wall? It could be it's going up against an existing building. I could be doing some kind of stud construction here as well, and so I want that wall open. It's grayed out on the right end wall because I left that as a bearing frame, which means I'm going to have bracing in this wall. There's not an option to do an open end wall. If you want to remove the girts and panels, you can do that. Remove the trim. You have an option to remove roof panels. Main reason you would do this is if you're doing like a frame only package. Let's say you're doing some kind of specialty panel that you're buying from a different supplier, or you have panel, that's where you can do a frame only package here as well. If you want the wall open partial height, then you can go in and say, okay, I want the wall open to 3'6". That will remove the material below when you put that in there. Next, we're going to overhangs. You have the option to do anywhere from 1 to 5 foot. And if you choose, so we're going to do a 5-foot overhang on the front sidewall, make sure that you note if you want soffit or not. So if I say include soffit, here, the standard default is reverse PBR 26 gauge. You can also do PBU panel. The Artisan L12 is a flat panel soffit. Reverse PBR 26 gauge is more the industry standard for basic buildings. Here's where it also put in the color for the soffit. If I'm not sure, then I can just I'm going to do a signature 200. color in there. Okay, so again, you can do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 foot. If you have a building that you're doing 1.5, go ahead and price it as 2. You're going to be close enough that your number is going to cover you. Next tab is liner panels. You have the option on here to do liner panels to the 7'9" area, which is going to cover your main girt over your walk doors, or you can do full height liner. You can also do roof liner. So all of those are options again on the liner screen. Jamb covers. This industry standard has been sometimes called full cover trim, jamb trim. So if you the default is to provide full cover trim over the girts. If you do not want that, if you're doing an ag building or a building that's got a lot of forklift traffic and that typically gets torn off, you can go in and say remove the jamb cover as well. By default, it's going to come for large openings, not for window and walk door openings. Next, we have the building panels tab. It defaults to 26 gauge PBR for both roof and walls. You also have the option to go to 24 gauge, Ultra Deck, which is the snap down standing seam, or Double Lock, which is the seamed standing seam roof. For the walls, you've got an option of PBR 24 gauge, PBU 26 or 24 gauge, or AVP or A panel in most cases, 24, 26 gauge. If you select a standing seam panel, it is going to ask you if you want high or low clips. If you're not sure for pricing purposes, select high, and then that will be verified based on what insulation system that you're going to use. Then we get to the wainscot. So if you're going to do a wainscot, you can tell it that I'm going to do it at 3 foot. My left end wall is open, so I won't have it there. Actually, we're going to do 3'5". You also want to tell it whether you're doing a panel lap with no trim. So you're just going to lap the top panel over the bottom panel at 3'5", or if you want to break the panel and you want a piece of trim in there, which is what I see most of the time. Particularly, it's just a cleaner. It's a cleaner look. So we're going to say panel break with trim. Again, we don't know what colors we need for pricing purposes, so we're just going to tell it we want a signature 200 wall, right? So again, I've gone through each one of these tabs. I would encourage you to make sure that every time you come to this advanced design tab, you go through these whether you need to use them or not. Once I say next, I then move to accessories, but the layout that you've done and the advanced design options are locked in. You cannot come back and change these on this particular quote. So make sure you take the time to go through each one of these tabs every time that you come through this screen. So I'm going to say next. And at this point, the program is doing basically a shell design. So it could take up to a minute for it to run, but it's going in and doing a design based on the parameters that you've put in so far. The next screen is going to take us to accessories where we can add windows, walk doors, vents, if we want gutters and downspouts. And so once we get to the accessories tab, we're basically at this point doing add-ons. With the accessories tab, the price that is shown is a street price for those accessories. So when you see a cost for a particular item, that may not be the actual cost that shows on the contract. The program is set up so that if somebody was sitting next to you while you price a building, it's already got a markup in there for you to make sure that you would be covered if you were pricing something to somebody that walked in off the street. All right, so in the accessories, couple things to notice on this particular building. I do have a warnings that came up, which means there's something on my building that failed, probably because of my open wall, but we'll look at that in just a minute. But just notice if you have a warnings button up here that you do need to check your pricing before putting the number on the street. Under accessories, again, we've got windows, so 303s, 304s, 604s, so all of these are not insulated windows. So if you do need an insulated window price, please get with your account manager. For your vents, there's the 12-inch and 9-inch continuous ridge vents. Miscellaneous has pipe jacks for small protrusions through the roof. You also have the option of 3, 4, or 6-inch insulation in the roof or the walls. You can add gutters, and a lot of times people will just ask how much is the add price. So this gives you just a quick add price if you want gutters and downspouts. Again, this is a marked up price. On doors, there's two different kinds of doors, so please pay attention on the doors. Pre-assembled doors are doors that are going to come already put together as a kit. They'll come where you basically pull the door out of the box and then can install it straight into the building. A knockdown door is going to come like a kit door where you will have to assemble the door in the field. So you'll notice there's a significant price difference between the two. Because the knockdown door, again, is a self-assembled door, it is less expensive, but it does cost more time for the erector to put the door together. Pre-assembled doors also come with a lock set, so you'll need to choose whether you want a lever lock or a heavy-duty mortise lock set. With the knockdown doors, basically you're choosing what kind of leaf that you want. The M is a solid door. The N is a narrow light door that's in the upper side of the door. We do have an option for a solid insulated door, a G door, which is a half glass door. And please note, glass does not come in the doors. So they will have to buy glass locally to install in a G door. And then you've got 4070, the M and the NL, and then you've got 6070. If you do select a door, so I just clicked on one of these doors, it'll give you the option, or it'll show you how the door swing works. So the pricing is going to include, and it'll tell you what's included in that pricing. So if you choose a knockdown door, again, you must also choose a lock set. So you have a standard duty lever lock, a heavy duty knob lock, or you can also choose anti-panic hardware surface mount. There are other options for 6070s if you want integrals, if they're both active doors. So if in doubt, please, again, get with your account manager. The next tab is colors. So right now I've just got our primary signature 200, the silicone polyester color for the building. You can also choose Kynar colors as well. For your roof, it's defaulted to Galvalume, but you have the option for all of the silicone polyester or the Kynar colors as well. So here I want to see what the warnings are. So to see the warnings, I'm going to click on here, and it's going to tell me that I've got an issue with the roof panel. And so this one I'd want to get reviewed by design just to make sure, or I'm sorry, by the account manager just to make sure that this is not a problem. From here, I'm going to say next. And now it's summing up the whole project for me, including all of the cost. It will default to you as the buyer with your address information. Then you would put in the owner information. The city, state, and zip code for the building is going to be based off the zip code that I entered, and that is locked in since the building codes are already set to that. If you are just doing this for a budget number and you're not actually using this quote to go to the street, the only thing you really have to put in here is the drawing delivery method. CBC defaults to electronic drawings, and you'll need to put in your email that the drawings will go to. From there, I can say complete process. You can select how many drawings that you need, whether it be 1 or 3. If it's electronic, it's just going to be 1 set. If you want to add any additional money, top money or finder's fee is typically used if somebody has referred a building sale to you. So you can build money into these 2 fields as well. I'm going to say complete process. At this point, it's taking all of your building information that you've done and it's wrapping that up into a pretty package so that you have a price. The great thing about this contract is that you can actually see what you've put in on the contract itself. For your login, it will have your logo, your address information, and if you put in the customer job site information, it will populate that in this job site information field. To walk you through the contract, the easiest way to show you is to do this load PDF. So I'm going to select on load PDF so that I can walk you through the contract. Again, the top information is going to be any address information. You can see the codes and loads. Building specifications, and it does it by wall. So you've got your width, length, heights, and then the backside wall is shown next to the backside wall. Left end wall is shown next to the left end wall, right, and the front side wall as well. If you've got wainscot, it'll show it here down in the bottom where I showed the panel break with trim. Then you've got your building panel and trim section. And then it's going to show you some basic sketches of what the building has designed. These can be downloaded, and we'll show you that here in just a minute, but it also gives you a price. This is an editable PDF, so if there's something on here that you want to change, you have the option to do that. Our program has recorded the original. For this particular building with the left end wall open, I'm going to assume, because I left this, you'll see up here in the codes and loads that I showed this as a closed building. So the E for enclosed. So this, I'm assuming that something is going to be built on this left end wall. So next, we're going to go through how to modify a quote or how to copy a quote. So if we wanted to do different options on this building that we just priced, we would still go to create a quote. And at the top, you'll notice we start on the specs tab. If I wanted to copy the one that I just did and change it, I would go to setup. So I'd click on this one for setup. Under the quote ID, I would select the last quote that I just did and say next. And then I want to call this a revision 1. It's going to hold all of my basic building information. One thing to note, if you are changing the width or the length, you need to start a new quote. The program is going to mess up. So you'll notice we went through that in a matter of minutes, so that if you are going to make a major geometry change, you'd want to make sure and start a new quote. In this particular case, I'm going to change some framed openings or something on the advanced design tab. So it's still held the 40 by 60 by 16. I'm going to say next. It will take me back to the codes and loads. Please note that it does not hold any prior code and load information that you may have changed. So in this particular case, I want to see what the difference in a 1 pound and a 3 pound collateral load is, and I'm going to change it to exposure C. If I had changed it to exposure C on my first quote, again, it does not hold that. It wants you to verify the codes and loads every single time you enter a building. So make sure when you copy a quote, you do verify code and load information once again. I'll say next. So in this particular case, they decided they only wanted a framed opening on the front side wall and not the back. So I'm going to click on the back side wall, and I can go in this bay and tell it to remove the opening and say done. I'm going to go next to take me to the advanced design tab, and again go through all of these tabs. It should hold any changes that you made. So it held that I'm doing an angle with base notch. I believe that we made some changes on the girt offset. So yeah, verify that it held that as well. So it held my 10-inch purlins. On my building panel, this time I'm going to run it with 26 gauge PBR for the roof and say next. Again, now it's going to go back and reprice the shell building for me with the changes that I've made. But again, this is still a 40 by 60 by 16, and I'm giving the customer a couple of different options to help their pricing. Continue. Again, we're back to the accessory tab. Note that it did not hold the accessories. So if you selected any accessories, you would need to go back in and put those in again. So let's see, I want to do one walk door this time with a lever lock, a pre-assembled door. And we're going to change the roof to signature 200. And say next. Again, it's going to take just a minute because it's combining all of the data that you've re-entered. I'll go in and tell it that I'm going to do electronic drawings. And again, I don't want to enter all the address information if I'm just doing a budget number, because that does not hold when you redo the quote. So once you're ready to buy it, you can go in and fill all of this in. But if you're just doing a number, then you don't need to put it in for this part. Make sure when you do this load PDF that you save these PDFs. You can download them, so you can print them. You can also save it. So make sure you save these somewhere to your computer so that you can go back to them as needed. You can also go back. So I'm just going back up to the tab at the top. And you can see I'm back to where the different options are. So if I want to view the quotes that I've done, I can go quotes and view past quotes, and it'll show me these two that I just did. If I wanted to download the contract again, I can see the contract as well. The next tab over is the Ideas tab. Next, under Ideas, so for the quote that sent me, or that showed me warnings, and I need to get it checked by my account manager. From there, you're going to go to Ideas. Over on the right, you'll see where it saved the elevation drawings into your download. I can open the file. Note it is showing these all as individual. You'll need to save these out of your downloads folder. So let's just say I'm going to save them to a desktop folder. So I'm going to copy all of these drawings and move them over to my desktop. Once I move them out of the downloads folder, I can then do a combined PDF. So I highlight the top one, highlight the bottom one, and tell it to combine the files in Acrobat because it downloads it as individual pages. So it's showing me all the different drawings. I'm a little OCD, so I typically am going to put the drawings together, go to the front, left, back, right, and then the frame cross section. I'm going to combine these. I'm going to save them. And these are going to be brown sketches. My customer is brown. All right, but then I have a multi-page PDF that I can send to the customer. All right, so going back to here, so the quote that we had that had the errors, and I want to send this one into my account manager to review. The way you do that is go to Ideas, Ideas Plus. I'm going to select the quote that had the error, which was the first one that I did, and I'm going to say Start Process. At this point, the program, again, to still save the shipping information, it does want you to put owner information in here. So Brown, if I don't know the address, it's not a big deal to put TBD here. I can copy and paste the city, state, and zip code, shipping information. And then I'm going to tell it that the job site is the same here and it's electronic only. In the special request, here I'm going to say, please check errors and price R38 insulation for roof and walls. So I'm giving specific direction to my account manager on what I need changed for this quote in order for me to finalize a price. You also have the option here to select file. So if you have drawings or sketches that you want to send into your account manager, you can go in here and say select files and navigate to where your drawings are. So if I go to my desktop and let's just say I have a hanger example, I can attach that file as well. Okay, from here I've entered all of the information and I'm going to say complete process. At this point, it's going to take the quote that I did and it's going to wrap it up and it will send it into your assigned account manager to make the modifications. Typically, you're going to see a reply back with a corrected price within 24 to 48 hours. If you do not hear from your account manager within 24 hours, please double check and make sure that it went. So right now, when it says processing, when you see thank you for your interest in our services, products, and quote request, we'll contact you soon. That tells you that that quote was sent in to the inside team for additional pricing. Also, idea support. I would typically stay away from idea support would be if you only have errors and you don't need any changes. But from a response perspective, the key things that I would use on this particular tab would be your create elevation drawings to send to your customer and the ideas plus, which is to send something in where you need a modification made that you cannot do yourself. The reports is for the leaders of the company if they want to see how many quotes have been run by type or volume. There's a report section there as well. Under Ideas Resources, here we've got a manual that shows you how to create a quote, Ideas Plus, offer to purchase, the building system. So you can either reference back to this video for training purposes, or if you have a particular question about a building, you can go to one of these guides and it'll give you the option of some basic training material for buildings. When you are ready to purchase a building, underneath ideas, there is offer to purchase. The admin for your company is the one that has the option to offer to purchase. And so basically, you go into offer to purchase and you'd select the quote and you can send it in. Your account manager will always call and review the quote with you and review the details and send you a CBC contract to sign. Thank you for attending today. If you have any other questions, we're here to help. Please contact your account manager for assistance.